frightened girl said, "Mummy won't wake up. What the Millionaire CEO does next is unbelievable. If you've ever wondered how a single knock on the door can change everything, this story will leave you speechless." At 3 a.m. on a cold December night, little Emma's trembling voice shattered the silence of Theodore's mansion. What happened next would unravel secrets buried for over 2 decades. But nobody could imagine what was coming next. If you're ready for an emotional journey that will keep you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you think will happen. Your support means everything. The December wind howled against the windows of Theodore Blackwood's mansion as he reviewed quarterly reports at 2:47 a.m. At 35, the tech CEO had built his empire through sleepless nights and relentless ambition. But tonight felt different. The numbers blurred before his exhausted eyes when 3 soft knocks echoed through the marble foyer. Theodore frowned, setting down his whiskey glass. Who would visit at this ungodly hour? The security system hadn't triggered any alerts. He approached the front door cautiously, his bare feet silent against the cold floor. Through the peephole, he saw a small figure in pink pajamas, trembling in the winter air. "Please, mister," came a tiny voice. "Mummy won't wake up." Theodore's heart stopped. He recognized the voice immediately. Emma Martinez, the 6-year-old daughter of his reclusive neighbor, Sophia. In the 2 years since they'd moved into the modest house next door, he'd only seen them from a distance. Sophia always kept her head down, hurrying Emma inside whenever Theodore was in his yard. He opened the door to find Emma's tear-streaked face looking up at him with desperate brown eyes. Her dark hair was tangled from sleep, and her small hands clutched a worn teddy bear. "I tried to wake her up, but she's really cold and she won't talk to me." Without hesitation, Theodore grabbed his coat and followed Emma through the hedge that separated their properties. The contrast between his pristine estate and Sophia's small, weathered house struck him as they approached the front door, which stood wide open, letting the winter air sweep inside. "How long have you been trying to wake her?" Theodore asked gently, kneeling to Emma's eye level. "I don't know," Emma whispered. "I was scared to go outside, but then I remembered you live next door. Mummy always says you're the man in the big house who works all night." Theodore felt something twist in his chest. Sophia had been watching him. The woman who seemed to avoid all human contact had been aware of his habits. He pushed the thought aside as they entered the house. The living room was sparse but clean, with children's drawings taped to the walls and a small Christmas tree decorated with handmade ornaments. "She's in there." Emma pointed toward the bedroom with a shaking finger. Theodore found Sophia Martinez, unconscious on her bedroom floor, her lips blue and her skin alarmingly pale. His fingers found a weak pulse at her neck, but her breathing was shallow and labored. Without wasting a second, he called 911, then tried to rouse her while keeping his voice calm for Emma's sake. "Mummy's going to be okay," he told the little girl, though his own heart was racing. "The doctors are coming to help her." As they waited for the ambulance, Emma crawled into his lap, her small body trembling with more than just cold. "Is Mummy going to die like Daddy did?" Theodore's breath caught. He hadn't known Emma's father had passed away. "When did your daddy die, sweetheart?" "Last year. Mummy cried a lot, and then we moved here." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "She's been sleeping a lot lately, and sometimes she forgets to eat." The paramedics arrived within minutes, their professional efficiency filling the small house with urgency. As they worked on Sophia, Theodore found himself holding Emma close, making promises he wasn't sure he could keep. The lead paramedic, a woman named Janet with kind eyes, confirmed his worst fears. "She's severely dehydrated and malnourished," Janet explained quietly. "We need to get her to the hospital immediately. Are you family?" Theodore looked down at Emma, who had fallen asleep against his chest despite the chaos around them. "No, but I'm all she has right now." At the hospital, Theodore sat in the waiting room with Emma curled up in his lap. Her teddy bear clutched tightly to her chest. The harsh fluorescent lights made everything feel surreal. He'd built a business empire, managed billion-dollar deals, and commanded boardrooms full of powerful executives. But he'd never felt more helpless than he did holding this sleeping child. Dr. Patricia Wells emerged from the emergency room at dawn, her expression grave. "Mr. Blackwood, I understand you brought Mrs. Martinez in. How is she?" Theodore asked, careful not to wake Emma. "Stable, but critical. She's suffering from severe malnutrition and dehydration. Her blood work shows she's been struggling with this for months." We also found evidence of chronic pain medication use, likely for a previous injury, but she's been taking far more than prescribed. Theodore felt his stomach drop. Will she be okay? With proper treatment, yes. But Mr. Blackwood, I have to ask, where is Child Protective Services? This little girl can't go home to an empty house. The weight of responsibility settled on Theodore's shoulders like a lead blanket. He looked down at Emma, who was stirring in his arms, her innocent face peaceful in sleep. In less than 6 hours, his carefully ordered world had been turned upside down by 3 soft knocks on his door. What scared him most wasn't the disruption to his routine. It was how right it felt to hold this child, how natural it seemed to be her protector. But as he watched Emma's chest rise and fall with each breath, Theodore couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Sofia Martinez's story than met the eye. Why had she been watching him? Why did she seem so familiar, even though he was certain they'd never met? And why did Emma's eyes remind him of someone he couldn't quite place? The answers would have to wait, but something deep in his gut told him that this was only the beginning of a mystery that would change everything he thought he knew about his own life. 2 days later, Theodore found himself in an impossible situation. Child Protective Services had granted him temporary guardianship of Emma, while Sofia remained in intensive care, sedated and fighting for her life. His pristine mansion, once a monument to his success and solitude, now echoed with the sounds of a 6-year-old girl who was trying to be brave in a world that had suddenly become terrifyingly uncertain. "I made you breakfast," Emma announced proudly, presenting Theodore with a plate of burnt toast and scrambled eggs that looked more like rubber. She'd found his rarely used kitchen and somehow managed to create this culinary disaster without burning down the house. Theodore's heart clenched as he took a bite of the inedible eggs and smiled. "It's delicious, Emma, thank you." Her face lit up with the first genuine smile he'd seen since that terrible night. "Mummy taught me how to cook eggs," she said. "I'm getting really good at it." "You are," Theodore agreed, washing down the rubbery eggs with coffee. "Your mum must be very proud of you." Emma's smile faltered. "Can we go see her today? I want to tell her about your big house and how nice you are." Theodore had been dreading this conversation. The doctors weren't allowing visitors yet, and he wasn't sure how to explain Sofia's condition to a child who had already lost her father. "The doctors are still helping your mummy get better, but I promise to take care of you until she's ready to come home." "Promise?" Emma's voice was small and uncertain. "Promise," Theodore said firmly, and meant it with every fiber of his being. That afternoon, while Emma napped in what had once been his home office but was now her temporary bedroom, Theodore drove to the hospital. He needed answers about Sofia's condition, and more importantly, he needed to understand why this woman and her daughter had affected him so profoundly. Dr. Wells met him in the hallway outside Sofia's room. "She's awake, but barely responsive. The malnutrition was worse than we initially thought. Mr. Blackwood, I have to ask, how well do you know this woman?" "I don't, really. She's been my neighbor for 2 years, but we've never spoken." "That's what I was afraid of," Dr. Wells said, consulting her chart. "Her medical history is concerning. She's been treated for chronic pain since a car accident 3 years ago. But the prescriptions we found in her house suggest she's been doctor shopping, getting medication from multiple sources." Theodore felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying she's been deliberately taking too much medication?" "It's possible, but there's something else." Dr. Wells lowered her voice. "When we ran her blood work, we found traces of several different medications that weren't prescribed to her. Someone has been giving her additional drugs. Mr. Blackwood, this wasn't accidental overdose or self-medication gone wrong. Someone wanted Sofia Martinez incapacitated." The words hit Theodore like a physical blow. "Are you saying someone tried to poison her?" "I'm saying someone has been systematically drugging her for months. The question is who and why." Theodore's mind raced. Who would want to hurt Sofia, and why? She was a reclusive single mother who kept to herself. "Unless, doctor, is there any way I can see her medical records? I want to understand what happened to her." "I can't share detailed medical information with you unless you're family." But Dr. Wells hesitated. "Mr. Blackwood, there's something strange about this case. Sofia Martinez's insurance information doesn't match her address. According to her records, she should be living in Phoenix, Arizona, not here in Connecticut." Theodore felt the ground shift beneath his feet. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Sofia Martinez might not be who she claims to be." That evening, after tucking Emma into bed with her teddy bear and reading her 3 stories, Theodore sat in his study with a glass of whiskey and his laptop. If Sophia wasn't who she claimed to be, then who was she? And why had she chosen to live next door to him? He started with basic searches, but Sophia Martinez yielded thousands of results. He needed more specific information. As he searched, Emma's voice drifted down from upstairs. She was talking to her teddy bear, processing the trauma of the past few days in the way children do. "Mr. Bear, do you think Mummy will be okay? Theodore says she will, and he seems really smart. He has a big house and a fancy car, but he makes really bad coffee." Her innocent chatter brought a smile to Theodore's face, despite his growing concern. As he continued his research, Theodore discovered something that made his blood run cold. There was no record of a Sophia Martinez matching her description ever. Living in Phoenix, no employment records, no rental agreements, no utility bills. It was as if she had simply materialized 3 years ago with a new identity. But the most disturbing discovery came when he found a missing persons report from 2021 to 3 years ago, around the time Emma's father supposedly died. The report was for a woman named Sarah Mitchell and her young daughter Emily, who had disappeared from their home in Denver, Colorado. After Sarah's ex-husband was released from prison, the photo attached to the missing persons report made Theodore's whiskey glass slip from his hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. The woman in the picture was unmistakably Sophia Martinez, or rather, Sarah Mitchell, and little Emily, photographed at age 3, had the same warm brown eyes and dark hair as Emma. According to the report, Sarah Mitchell's ex-husband, Marcus Mitchell, had been convicted of domestic violence and stalking. He'd been released from prison 3 years ago, just weeks before Sarah and Emily disappeared. The report noted that Sarah had expressed fear for her life and her daughter's safety, and that she believed Marcus would never stop hunting them. Theodore's hands shook as he read the final line of the report. Subject believed to be in hiding, with assistance from unknown parties, considered extremely dangerous situation. Sophia Martinez was Sarah Mitchell, and she'd been hiding from her abusive ex-husband for 3 years. But if that was true, then who had been systematically drugging her, and why now? Theodore's mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. As he sat surrounded by the shattered remains of his whiskey glass, Theodore realized that Emma's midnight knock on his door hadn't just saved her mother's life, it had potentially uncovered a deadly game of cat and mouse that had been playing out right next door for 2 years. But the most chilling thought of all was this: if someone had found Sarah Mitchell after 3 years of hiding, they might also be watching Emma, and now, they might be watching him too. Theodore barely slept that night, his mind racing with the implications of his discovery. By morning, he'd made a decision that would have seemed impossible just days earlier. He was going to protect Emma and Sophia, no matter the cost. But first he needed to know if Marcus Mitchell had found them. At breakfast, Emma was unusually quiet, picking at her cereal while clutching her teddy bear with one arm. "Theodore," she said finally, her voice small and uncertain. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Yesterday, when you went to see Mummy, a man came to the door. He said he was looking for someone, but I didn't answer because Mummy always told me never to open the door for strangers." Theodore's blood ran cold. What did this man look like, Emma? He was big, with scary eyes. He had a picture, and he kept looking at our old house through the window. Emma's voice began to tremble. "He looked mean, like the man in my nightmares." Theodore knelt beside her chair, his voice gentle but urgent. "Emma, this is very important. Have you seen this man before?" Emma nodded slowly, tears beginning to fall. "Sometimes I see him in my dreams, and Mummy gets very scared. She says we had to move far away because of the bad man who hurt her. Is he the same man?" "Theodore." Theodore pulled Emma into his arms, his heart breaking for this brave little girl, who had already seen too much fear in her short life. "I won't let anyone hurt you or your Mummy, I promise." After ensuring Emma was safely occupied with cartoons and the security system was fully activated, Theodore called his head of security, James Morrison, a former FBI agent who handled sensitive matters for Theodore's company. "I need a full background check on a Marcus Mitchell, recently released from Colorado State Penitentiary," Theodore said without preamble. "And I need to know if he's currently in Connecticut. How quickly do you need this information?" Morrison asked, his professional tone indicating he understood this wasn't a routine business matter. "Yesterday, and James, this involves a child's safety. Use every resource we have. Within hours, Morrison called back with information that confirmed Theodore's worst fears. Marcus Mitchell was released 18 months ago for good behavior. He's violated his parole 3 times, always for traveling outside his designated area. The last violation was 2 weeks ago. He disappeared from a halfway house in Denver. 2 weeks ago, Theodore repeated, his stomach dropping. That was around the time Sophia's condition had begun deteriorating rapidly. There's more, Morrison continued. Mitchell has been obsessed with finding his ex-wife and daughter. He's hired 3 different private investigators over the past year, and according to my sources, one of them may have located Sarah Mitchell, who's been living under the name Sophia Martinez in Connecticut. Theodore felt the walls closing in. Is he in Connecticut now? Unknown, but probable. Boss, if this guy is as dangerous as his record suggests, you need to involve law enforcement immediately. But Theodore knew that involving the police could expose Sophia's false identity and potentially put Emma in the foster care system while the legal complications were sorted out. There had to be another way. That afternoon, while Emma colored in her new art books, Theodore received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Wells arrived at his front door, her usually professional demeanor replaced by obvious anxiety. Mr. Blackwood, I came as soon as I could. Someone broke into Sophia's hospital room last night. Theodore's blood turned to ice. Is she okay? She's alive, but barely. Whoever it was disconnected her and tried to inject something into her central line. If the night nurse hadn't walked in when she did. Dr. Wells shook her head. We've moved her to a secure wing. But Mr. Blackwood, someone is actively trying to kill this woman. Did security cameras catch anything? A man in scrubs, but he knew exactly where the blind spots were. This wasn't random. It was planned by someone with inside knowledge of the hospital layout. Theodore's mind was working frantically. Marcus Mitchell was escalating, becoming desperate. The systematic drugging hadn't worked fast enough, so now he was trying direct murder. But why? What was driving this obsession with a woman who had fled from him 3 years ago? Dr. Wells, I need to see Sophia, Sarah, whatever her real name. She's the only one who can tell us what we're really dealing with. At the hospital, Theodore was shocked by Sophia's appearance. The woman who had once kept her distance, hurrying her daughter inside whenever she saw him, now looked fragile and vulnerable in the hospital bed. But when she saw him, her eyes filled with a recognition that went beyond neighborly familiarity. Theodore Blackwood, she whispered, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube. I should have known it would be you. Should have known what would be me. Theodore asked, confused by her words. Sophia tried to sit up, wincing with pain. The man who would save us. I've been watching you for 2 years, hoping, praying that when the time came, you would be the one Emma ran to. Theodore felt the room spin around him. You've been watching me. Why? Because 25 years ago, you saved my life once before, Theodore. You just don't remember me. The words hit Theodore like a physical blow. 25 years ago, he would have been 10 years old. I don't understand. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. My name isn't Sophia Martinez, or even Sarah Mitchell. My real name is Susan Thompson, and 25 years ago, I was the 8-year-old girl you pulled from a burning car after the accident that killed my parents. Theodore's world tilted on its axis. Susan Thompson, the little girl with brown eyes who had haunted his childhood nightmares and hero dreams. The girl he'd pulled from the wreckage of a family vacation gone wrong. The girl whose face he'd never been able to forget despite years of therapy to deal with the trauma of witnessing such tragedy. Susan, he whispered, the name feeling like coming home and falling apart all at once. I never forgot you, Theodore. When I needed to disappear, when Marcus became too dangerous, I researched you. I found out where you lived, and I moved next door, hoping that if something happened to me, you would save Emma the way you saved me. Theodore's hands were shaking as the implications crashed over him. Emma isn't just any child. She's your daughter. You've been hiding next door for 2 years, waiting for me to save you again. And you did, Susan whispered, reaching for his hand with fingers that barely had the strength to curl around his. But Theodore, there's something else you need to know. Something I should have told you years ago. Something that explains why Marcus will never stop hunting us. Theodore leaned closer, his heart pounding with dread and anticipation. Emma isn't Marcus's daughter, Susan said, her voice barely audible. And that's why he'll kill us both before he lets us go. Theodore stared at Susan in shock, his mind struggling to process her words. "What do you mean Emma isn't Marcus's daughter?" Susan's grip on his hand tightened with what little strength she had. "After the accident that killed my parents, I went into foster care. You were a hero to me, Theodore, but you were also just a 10-year-old boy. I never saw you again, but I never forgot you. When I turned 18, I aged out of the system and tried to build a life." Her voice grew weaker, but more urgent. "I met Marcus when I was 20. He seemed charming at first, protective, but after we married, he became controlling, then violent. When I finally tried to leave him 4 years ago, I discovered I was pregnant." Theodore felt his world shifting beneath him. "Marcus thinks Emma is his. I let him believe it because I was terrified of what he'd do if he knew the truth. But Theodore, Marcus is sterile. A childhood illness left him unable to have children. He's always suspected Emma wasn't his, which made his abuse worse. He became obsessed with proving I'd been unfaithful." The heart monitor next to Susan's bed began beeping more rapidly as her distress increased. When he finally had DNA tests done secretly, he discovered Emma wasn't his biological child. That's when he became truly dangerous. In his mind, I'd stolen 3 years of his life, made him believe he was a father when he never could be. Theodore tried to process the implications, so when he was arrested, he swore he'd kill both of us when he got out, not just because I'd left him, but because Emma represented the ultimate betrayal in his mind. He blamed me for taking away his chance at being a father, then giving that chance to another man. "Who is Emma's father?" Theodore asked gently. Susan's eyes filled with tears. "A man who died in a construction accident before Emma was born. Someone kind and gentle who would have loved her completely. Marcus never knew about him, and now it doesn't matter. What matters is that Marcus will never stop hunting us because Emma represents everything he can never have." Theodore felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Emma wasn't just any child in danger. She was the daughter of a dead man, being hunted by a monster who saw her very existence as a personal insult. "Susan, we need to get you and Emma somewhere safe. I have resources, connections." "No," Susan interrupted weakly. "Theodore, you don't understand. Marcus has been planning this for months. The person who's been drugging me. It's not Marcus himself. He's too smart to do the dirty work. He's hired someone with access to medical supplies and knowledge of medications." Theodore's blood ran cold. "Someone who works at the hospital." Susan nodded slowly. "Think about it. Someone who knew exactly how to gradually poison me without it looking suspicious. Someone who had access to my medical records and could alter my prescriptions. Someone who knew the hospital layout well enough to almost kill me last night. Do you know who? I have suspicions, but no proof. Theodore, you have to get Emma away from here. Marcus won't stop with just killing me. He wants Emma to suffer for existing, for being the child he could never have." Before Theodore could respond, Dr. Wells appeared in the doorway, her face pale with anxiety. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to speak with you immediately." In the hallway, Dr. Wells delivered news that made Theodore's worst fears seem almost optimistic. "The man who attacked Mrs. Susan last night, we found him. He's Dr. Richard Hawthorne, a physician who was fired from this hospital 6 months ago for drug theft and patient endangerment. Where is he now? Dead. He was found in his apartment this morning. Apparent suicide. But Mr. Blackwood, before he died, he left a message on his phone. Marcus Mitchell paid him $50,000 to slowly kill Susan Thompson and make it look like accidental overdose. But the plan has changed." Theodore felt his knees go weak. Changed how? According to the message, Mitchell is done being patient. He's in Connecticut, and he's planning to take Emma tonight. Hawthorne was supposed to kill Susan to make it look like a grieving mother took her own life after losing her daughter. But when that failed, Mitchell decided to handle things himself. Theodore's mind raced. "Where is Emma now?" "At your house, with your security team," Dr. Wells said. "But Mr. Blackwood, there's something else. Mitchell doesn't just want Emma dead. According to Hawthorne's message, he wants to take her somewhere, isolated where he can make her pay for what her existence cost him. This isn't just about revenge anymore. This is about torture." Theodore's vision went red with rage and terror. The idea of that monster getting his hands on Emma, of hurting that brave, innocent little girl who had knocked on his door seeking help, was beyond unthinkable. "How long do we have?" Hawthorne's message was recorded at 3 a.m. this morning. "Mitchell could already be watching your house." Theodore pulled out his phone to call Morrison, but Dr. Wells stopped him. "Mr. Blackwood, there's one more thing. Hawthorne mentioned that Mitchell has help. Someone local, someone who's been watching your house and reporting on your routines. This isn't just one man, it's a coordinated attack." As if summoned by worst fears, his phone rang. Morrison's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Boss, we've got a problem. I'm at your house, and Emma's gone." Theodore's world exploded into chaos. "What do you mean, gone?" "The security system was disabled from the inside. Someone with access codes got Emma out of the house without triggering any alarms. Boss, whoever took her knew exactly what they were doing. This was planned by someone who knows your security measures inside and out." Theodore sank against the hospital wall, the magnitude of the betrayal hitting him like a physical blow. Someone he trusted, someone with access to his home and security systems, had handed Emma over to a monster. Morrison locked down everything, every employee, every contractor, everyone who's had access to my house in the past 6 months. Someone close to me has been working with Mitchell. As Theodore raced through the hospital toward his car, one thought consumed him. Emma was out there somewhere with a man who wanted to make her suffer for the crime of existing. But she wasn't just any child to Theodore anymore. She was the daughter of the woman he'd saved 25 years ago, the little girl who had trusted him enough to knock on his door in the middle of the night, the child who had brought light into his carefully controlled world, and he would burn down everything he'd built before he let Marcus Mitchell hurt her. But first, he had to figure out who had betrayed them all. Theodore drove through the Connecticut night with a desperation he'd never known, his phone pressed to his ear as Morrison coordinated search efforts from the war room they'd set up in Theodore's home office. The betrayal cut deep. Someone within his inner circle had sold out Emma's location to a monster. "I've got the security footage from the past week," Morrison reported. "Boss, you're not going to like this. The person who disabled the system and took Emma, it was Maria Santos." Theodore's hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. Maria had been his housekeeper for 8 years, a woman he'd trusted completely, someone who had keys to everything and knew all his routines. "That's impossible. Maria would never." "There's video evidence, boss. But here's what doesn't make sense. Maria didn't take Emma willingly. The footage shows her crying, looking terrified. Someone was forcing her to cooperate." Theodore's mind raced. Where is Maria now? Dead, found in her car 20 minutes ago. Single gunshot to the head. But boss, before she died, she managed to send a text message to her daughter. It just says Riverside Mill, hurry. The Riverside Mill. Theodore knew it immediately, an abandoned textile factory 40 miles north of town, isolated and perfect for someone who wanted privacy for unspeakable acts. But was Maria's message genuine, or was it a trap designed to lure Theodore into Mitchell's hands? "Morrison, I want a full tactical team at that location in 30 minutes. No sirens, no lights. If Mitchell hears us coming, already en route, boss. But you need to know if this is a trap. Mitchell might have Emma somewhere else entirely. We could be walking into an ambush while he escapes with her." Theodore's heart was racing as he changed direction toward the mill. Every minute that passed was another minute Emma spent in the hands of a man who wanted to make her pay for existing. But there was something else gnawing at him, something that didn't fit the pattern. "Morrison, pull everything you can find on Maria Santos. If someone was threatening her, I need to know how they got to her." "Already on it. Boss, Maria's got a granddaughter, Sophia, age 7, lives with Maria's daughter in Hartford. 3 days ago, someone grabbed Sophia from her school playground. The family never reported it because they received a call saying she'd be killed if they involved police." The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. Mitchell hadn't just found Susan and Emma, he'd systematically identified everyone in Theodore's circle who could be leveraged. Maria hadn't betrayed them. She'd been forced to choose between Emma's life and her own granddaughter's. Where's Maria's granddaughter now? Unknown. But boss, if Mitchell has both children... Theodore's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. His blood turned to ice as he answered. "Theodore Blackwood," came a voice that was calm, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its casual malice. "My name is Marcus Mitchell. I believe you have something that belongs to me." "Emma doesn't belong to you," Theodore said, his voice steady despite the rage coursing through his veins. Mitchell's laugh was cold and humorless. "Emma is the living proof of my wife's betrayal, Mr. Blackwood. But you're right, she doesn't belong to me. She belongs to no one, which is why she deserves to suffer for the crime of existing. What do you want? I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything. Mr. Blackwood, you see, I've been studying you for months. The great Theodore Blackwood, successful beyond measure, but alone in that big house of yours, until 3 days ago, when suddenly you had something to lose. Theodore's blood ran cold. Mitchell had been watching long before Emma knocked on his door. You've been planning this for months. Planning is my specialty, Mr. Blackwood. Asterisk, did you really think it was coincidence that Susan became ill when she did that? Emma would run to exactly the right person for help. I've been orchestrating every move of this chess game, and you've been dancing to my tune without even knowing it. The implication hit Theodore like a sledgehammer. You caused Susan's illness intentionally, knowing Emma would come to me. Very good. I needed Emma to form an attachment to someone who would be devastated to lose her. What's the point of taking something away if the victim doesn't care? And Theodore Blackwood, successful CEO with no family, no children of his own. You were perfect. I made sure Emma would knock on your door, made sure you'd fall in love with playing daddy, and now I'm going to take it all away. Theodore's hands were shaking with rage. Where is she? Safe, for now, but her comfort depends entirely on your cooperation. You see, I have 2 little girls, Mr. Blackwood, Emma and Maria's granddaughter, Sophia. They're both very scared, both crying for people who can't help them. The monster was using children as pawns in his game of revenge. What do you want from me? I want you to suffer the way I suffered, wondering if the child you love is safe. I want you to feel helpless and desperate. And then, when you've learned what real loss feels like, I want you to watch Emma die knowing that her blood is on your hands for interfering in my business. Theodore's vision went red. If you hurt her, you'll what? You're 40 miles away, Mr. Blackwood, following the breadcrumbs I left for you. By the time you reach the mill, I'll be long gone with both girls. But don't worry, I'll send you updates on Emma's condition. I want you to know exactly what she's going through as she pays for her mother's crimes. The line went dead, leaving Theodore alone with his terror and rage. But there was something in Mitchell's words that didn't quite fit. Why lead him to the mill if it was empty? Why give him any location at all unless Theodore called Morrison immediately? It's a trap, but not the kind we thought. Mitchell wants me at the mill, but not to capture me. He wants me to find something there, something that will make Emma's situation even worse. What could be worse than a kidnapped child? Theodore's stomach dropped as the horrible possibility occurred to him. Morrison, what if Emma isn't the only child Mitchell has taken over the years? What if the mill is where he keeps them? Jesus, boss, get that tactical team to move faster. And Morrison, tell them to prepare for the worst-case scenario. We might not just be rescuing Emma, we might be uncovering evidence of something much larger and more horrific than we imagined. As Theodore raced through the night toward what might be his worst nightmare, realized he couldn't shake the feeling that Emma's kidnapping was just the beginning of Mitchell's revenge. The man had spent months planning this, studying Theodore's weaknesses, manipulating events to create maximum psychological damage. But Mitchell had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated the lengths Theodore would go to protect someone he loved, and Theodore was beginning to realize that his feelings for Emma went far deeper than simple compassion. She represented everything pure and innocent in a world that had tried to make him hard and cynical. The riverside mill loomed against the winter sky like a monument to decay, its broken windows staring down at Theodore like dead eyes. Morrison's tactical team had arrived first, confirming Theodore's worst fears. The building wasn't empty. They'd found evidence of recent habitation in the basement, makeshift cells, children's belongings, and worse. Boss, you need to see this. Morrison's voice crackled through the radio as Theodore approached the mill's entrance. But I'm warning you, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about Marcus Mitchell. Theodore descended into the basement, his flashlight cutting through darkness that seemed to have weight and substance. What he found there would haunt him for the rest of his life. 7 small rooms, each with a child-sized mattress and evidence of prolonged occupancy. The walls were covered with photographs, dozens of children of various ages, some smiling in what appeared to be school photos, others showing signs of fear and abuse. How long has this been going on? Theodore asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Based on the evidence, at least 5 years, Morrison replied grimly. Boss, Emma and Maria's granddaughter aren't Mitchell's first victims. This is a pattern, a system. He's been taking children who fit a specific profile, daughters of women who escaped abusive relationships. Theodore studied the photographs with growing horror. He's been hunting down women who left their abusers and targeting their children as revenge. It gets worse. We found records, detailed files on each family. Mitchell doesn't work alone. He's part of a network of men who share information about women who've escaped. They call themselves the Collectors, and they specialize in what they call corrective punishment for women who dare to leave. The implications crashed over Theodore like a wave of ice water. Emma wasn't just the victim of one man's obsession. She was caught in the web of an organized group that terrorized women and children across multiple states. Where are the other children? Morrison's silence spoke volumes before he finally answered. We're still investigating, boss. But based on what we've found here, I don't think they're coming home. Theodore's legs nearly gave out beneath him. The photographs on the walls weren't just trophies, they were memorials. And somewhere out there, Mitchell had Emma, intending to add her picture to this gallery of horror. His phone buzzed with another call from Mitchell. This time, when Theodore answered, he could hear Emma's voice in the background, frightened but alive. I see you found my workshop, Mr. Blackwood, Mitchell said with obvious satisfaction. Beautiful, isn't it? 23 children over 5 years, each one paying for their mother's crimes. Emma will be number 24. You sick bastard. Now, Theodore. Such language in front of the children. Yes, Emma is right here with me, along with little Sophia. They're both being very brave, aren't you girls? Theodore heard Emma's voice, thin with terror, but trying to be strong. Theodore, I'm okay. The bad man says you're coming to get me, but I told him you promised to keep me safe. Theodore's heart shattered at the trust in her voice. Even in the hands of a monster, Emma still believed he would save her. Emma, sweetheart, I'm coming for you. I promise. How touching, Mitchell sneered. But you see, Theodore, I've learned something interesting about you during my research. You have quite the hero complex, don't you? Always trying to save people, always trying to fix what's broken. It started when you were 10 years old, didn't it? When you pulled little Susan Thompson from that burning car. Theodore's blood turned to ice. How do you know about that? Because that's when I first heard your name, Theodore. You see, Susan Thompson wasn't just some random accident victim. She was my half-sister. The world tilted on its axis. Theodore gripped the wall for support as the implications crashed over him. That's impossible. Our father abandoned my mother when I was 5 to be with Susan's mother. He left us with nothing, started a new family, pretended we didn't exist. And when that family died in a car accident, who was the hero? Theodore Blackwood, age 10. Pulling his precious daughter from the wreckage, while I watched from the crowd, forgotten and invisible. Theodore's mind reeled. Susan is your half-sister, and Emma is my half-sister's daughter. The child of the woman my father chose over my mother, saved by the boy who got to be a hero while I remained nobody. Do you understand now, Theodore? This isn't just about revenge on Susan for leaving me. This is about settling a debt that's 25 years overdue. The twisted logic of Mitchell's obsession became clear. In his damaged mind, Theodore had stolen his moment of importance by being the hero who saved Susan. Every success Theodore had achieved, every accolade he'd received, was built on what Mitchell saw as stolen valor. You've been planning this for 25 years. I've been waiting for the perfect moment to take back what you stole from me. When Susan disappeared with Emma, I saw my opportunity. I would find them, make Theodore Blackwood care about them, and then destroy everything he loved while he watched, helpless to stop it. Theodore's rage was so pure it became clarity. Where are you, Mitchell? Close, Theodore. Closer than you think. In fact, I'm watching you right now. Theodore spun around, his flashlight cutting through the darkness of the basement. Morrison, we've got company. Mitchell is here. But Morrison's voice came through the radio with devastating news. Boss, we've been had. This whole thing is a distraction. While we've been here, Mitchell's people hit the hospital. Susan Thompson is gone. Theodore felt the world collapse around him. Mitchell hadn't just taken Emma, he'd orchestrated a complex operation to capture the entire family that had unknowingly defined his twisted worldview. Susan, the half-sister he blamed for his father's abandonment. Emma, the innocent child whose very existence reminded him of everything he'd never had. And Theodore, the hero whose moment of childhood bravery had supposedly stolen Mitchell's chance at recognition. The game is just beginning. Theodore. Mitchell's voice echoed through the basement, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. I have Susan, I have Emma, and soon I'll have you. The family reunion I've been planning for 25 years is finally going to happen. The line went dead, leaving Theodore alone in a basement that had become the tomb of Mitchell's previous victims. But as he stared at the photographs of children who would never go home, Theodore made a promise that burned in his chest like molten steel. Emma would not become number 24. Whatever it cost him, whatever he had to sacrifice, he would not let Marcus Mitchell add her picture to this wall of horrors. The hunt was far from over. In fact, Theodore was beginning to realize it had barely begun. Theodore raced through Connecticut countryside with Morrison's tactical team, following GPS tracker planted on Mitchell's vehicle during hospital extraction. Signal led to abandoned summer camp 50 miles north, closed decades after suspicious children's accidents. Boss, this place has history, Morrison reported. Camp Riverside closed 1998 after 3 children died mysteriously. Owner was Thomas Mitchell, Marcus's father. Theodore's blood chilled. Mitchell's father owned camp where children died. Gets worse. 3 dead children were daughters of women who'd left abusive relationships. Official cause, accidental drowning, but families suspected foul play. Pattern went deeper than realized. Marcus hadn't learned methods, inherited them from father hunting vulnerable families for decades. Approaching camp, Theodore's phone buzzed with video message. Screen showed Emma and Sophia bound, terrified, sitting in old cabin. Behind them stood shadowy figure Marcus Mitchell. Hello, Theodore. Mitchell's voice came through speaker. Welcome to where it all began. This is where my father taught me most important lesson. Heroes like you create victims like me. Emma tried being brave despite terror. Small voice carried clearly. Theodore, he says you're coming to play game with us. I told him you don't like games, but you're really good at helping people. That's right, Emma. Mitchell's voice sickeningly gentle. Theodore is very good at helping people. So good he's going to help me teach you and your mummy important lesson about what happens to families who don't stay where they belong. Camera panned, showing Susan, barely conscious, strapped to chair, clearly drugged again, but eyes showed recognition. Theodore, she whispered weakly, don't come here. It's what he wants. Very wise advice from Auntie Susan. Mitchell continued mockingly, but we both know Theodore won't listen. He can't help himself. He has to be hero. It's what he's been doing 25 years, since he stole my moment of glory. Theodore arrived at camp's entrance, finding gates standing open, as if Mitchell inviting him in. Place felt like tomb. Rotting cabins around Central Lodge, murky lake reflecting grey, winter sky, overwhelming malevolence seeping from ground itself. You know your biggest mistake, Marcus, Theodore said, stepping closer to children. You spent so much time planning revenge that you forgot something important about heroes. Mitchell's eyes narrowed. What's that? We don't work alone. Words barely left Theodore's mouth when Lodge exploded into chaos. Morrison's tactical team breached building from 3 directions simultaneously, using flashbang grenades to disorient Mitchell while Theodore dove toward Emma and Sophia. But Mitchell had planned this moment too long to be caught completely off guard. As room filled with smoke and shouting, he grabbed Susan's chair and dragged her toward door. Theodore hadn't noticed passage leading deeper into Lodge's basement. Emma, Theodore shouted, cutting through ropes binding her. Are you hurt? I'm okay, Emma said, voice shaking, but he took Mummy downstairs. Theodore, there's something bad down there. He showed us pictures. Theodore's blood turned ice. What kind of pictures? Little Sophia spoke with horrible clarity. Trauma brings children. Pictures of other kids who didn't go home. He said we were going to join them if you didn't play his game right. Morrison appeared through smoke, tactical gear making him look like Nightmare. Boss Mitchell's in basement, but we've got problem. Whole lower level rigged with explosives. If we move wrong, this place comes down. Theodore looked at Emma and Sophia, both girls clinging to him with desperate trust. Get them out. Get them somewhere safe. Boss, you can't go down alone. It's suicide. It's only way. Mitchell wants me, not them. If I go down there, he'll focus on me instead of hurting Susan. Emma grabbed Theodore's shirt with small hands, feeling incredibly strong. Don't leave me, Theodore. You promised. Theodore knelt to Emma's eye level, heart breaking at fear in her eyes. Emma, I need you brave little while longer. Morris, going to take you and Sophia somewhere safe, then I'm getting your mummy and bringing her home. Can you do that? Emma nodded, tears streaming. You promise you'll come back? I promise, Theodore said, meaning it with every fiber. As Morrison led girls out, Theodore descended into basement alone. What he found was worse than darkest imaginings. Basement had been converted into museum of Marcus Mitchell's father's crimes. Photographs of children who'd disappeared over decades. Personal belongings never returned to families. Detailed journals, documenting systematic torture and murder of innocent victims. Welcome to truth, Theodore. Mitchell's voice echoed from shadows. This is what heroism really looks like when you dig beneath surface. My father spent 30 years cleaning up mistakes that heroes like you create. Theodore found them in room, resembling Twisted Chapel, with photographs of dead children arranged like religious icons around walls. Susan was tied to chair in center, more alert now but clearly terrified. Mitchell stood behind her with gun to her head. Your father wasn't cleaning up mistakes, Theodore said carefully. He was creating them. Those children did nothing wrong. They existed in a world where justice doesn't work, Mitchell replied. Where women leave husbands and think they can just disappear, start new lives, pretend their crimes don't have consequences. What crime did Susan commit? She was 8 years old. She committed crime of being saved when I wasn't, Mitchell said with chilling simplicity. She got to live because you chose to save her, instead of finding me in that crowd of onlookers. She got 25 years of life that should have been mine. Theodore realized Mitchell's madness went deeper than revenge. Twisted logic of man who'd spent entire life believing someone else's salvation had stolen his chances at happiness. Marcus, saving Susan didn't take anything away from you. There was no choice between saving her or you. You weren't in danger, but I was in pain. Mitchell's composure cracked. I was a 5-year-old boy whose father had abandoned him, and while you were being celebrated as hero for saving his precious new daughter, I was watching from crowd, invisible and forgotten. Susan spoke weakly but determined. Marcus, I never knew you existed until 3 years ago. I never knew our father had another family. If I had known, you would have what? Shared your perfect life with me, given me half your happiness. Mitchell's laugh was bitter. It's too late for that, sister. Too late for 25 years. You're right, Marcus, Theodore said quietly, voice carrying calm certainty that filled underground chamber. Heroes don't really exist. There are just people who make choices in impossible moments. Mitchell's finger tightened on detonator. Finally, you understand. But you're wrong about one thing, Theodore continued, taking careful step forward. You think saving Susan 25 years ago was about being hero. It wasn't. It was about 10-year-old boy who saw someone in trouble and couldn't walk away. Pretty words, Theodore, but they don't change anything. Asterisk, they change everything, Theodore said, voice growing stronger. Because that same 10-year-old boy is still inside me, and he's telling me there's always another choice. Even when monsters, like your father, try to convince us there isn't. Susan watched Theodore with eyes holding both fear and desperate hope. She mouthed silently, Emma. Theodore nodded almost imperceptibly. He understood what Susan was trying to tell him, but also understood something she didn't, something Marcus Mitchell, in all his planning, had failed to consider. Marcus, before you press that button, I want you to know something about your father's justice that you might not have discovered in research. Mitchell's eyes narrowed, suspiciously. What are you talking about? The summer camp. 3 children who died here in 1998. Your father didn't kill them because of twisted sense of justice. About mothers leaving abusive relationships. Of course he did. He told me. He lied to you, Theodore said, voice cutting through Mitchell's certainty like blade. I had Morrison run deeper background check while tracking you here. Your father killed those children because they could identify him as man who'd been molesting them during camp activities. Mitchell's face went white. That's impossible. Police files were sealed because victims were minors, but evidence was clear. Thomas Mitchell was predator who used this camp to access vulnerable children. Mother's abusive relationships weren't motive, they were cover story. Because he knew abandoned and frightened children would be less likely to report abuse. Theodore could see foundation of Mitchell's worldview cracking in real time. Everything your father told you about justice and heroes and cleaning up society's mistakes, all lies to hide fact. He was a monster who hurt children for his own pleasure. 6 months later, Theodore stood in kitchen watching Emma attempt making pancakes while Sophia offered helpful advice consisting mainly of suggesting more chocolate chips. Morning light, streaming through windows, made everything feel golden and peaceful. Stark contrast to terrible December night that changed all their lives. "Theodore, I think pancakes are supposed to be round," Emma observed, looking critically at misshapen blobs she'd just poured onto griddle. "I think they're perfect exactly as they are," Theodore replied, ruffling her hair as he checked batter consistency. In 6 months since that night at camp, Emma had slowly begun healing from trauma, though still sometimes woke with nightmares needing reassurance she was safe. Susan entered kitchen looking healthier than Theodore had ever seen her. Months of recovery had been difficult. Physical therapy for damaged drugs had done to her system, counseling to process kidnapping trauma, complex legal proceedings surrounding Marcus Mitchell's network, but she was stronger now, more at peace with herself and past. "How are my favorite chefs this morning?" she asked, accepting coffee from Theodore with a smile that had become increasingly common as months passed. "We're making breakfast for everybody," Emma announced proudly. "Theodore said Sophia's mum is coming to pick her up after church, and we wanted to make something special." Relationship between Theodore and Susan had evolved slowly and carefully over months. What began as crisis situation had gradually transformed into something deeper, partnership based on mutual respect, shared trauma, and their love for Emma. They were taking things one day at a time, building trust and healing together. "Speaking of Sophia's mom," Susan said, "Maria called this morning. She wanted me to tell you again how grateful she is for everything you've done for Sophia." Theodore nodded, though still carried guilt about Maria Santos's death. Brave woman who'd been forced to choose between her granddaughter's life and Emma's safety had become hero in Theodore's mind, someone who'd made impossible choice with grace and courage. "Have you heard anything new about investigation?" Susan asked quietly, knowing Emma was old enough to understand some of what happened, but not wanting to burden her with details. 1 year later, Theodore stood in visiting room of minimum facility where Marcus Mitchell was serving final months of his reduced sentence. Across from him sat man who looked nothing like monster who'd terrorized their family 18 months earlier. Marcus had gained healthy weight. His eyes held clarity instead of rage, and when he smiled at seeing Theodore, it was genuine rather than calculated. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said, voice carrying none of cold menace. Theodore remembered. "I wasn't sure you would. Susan wanted to come, but she's at home with baby Michael. He's been fussy all week, and Emma insisted on staying home to help." Marcus's face lit up at mention of his nephew. "Michael, I still can't believe I have nephew. How's Emma adjusting to being big sister?" "Better than we expected," Theodore admitted, settling into uncomfortable plastic chair. "She's incredibly protective of him, and she's been asking when Uncle Marcus gets to meet baby Michael." Question hung in air between them, loaded with implications and possibilities that still felt surreal. To Theodore, year ago, this man had been his enemy. Now, through circumstances neither could have imagined, he was family. "Marcus, parole board, met last week." Marcus nodded, expression serious. "I know. They approved my release for next month, contingent on continued cooperation with FBI and completion of psychological rehabilitation program. How do you feel about that?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Theodore could see him choosing words carefully. "Terrified," he said finally. "For 25 years, anger was only emotion I really understood. Now I'm trying to learn how to be person instead of weapon, and some days I don't know if I'm strong enough." Theodore leaned forward. "Marcus, Susan and I have been talking about your release. We want to offer you something, but I need you to understand it comes with conditions." Marcus's eyebrows rose. "What kind of offer?" "We've converted guest house on our property into small apartment. If you want it, it's yours when you get out. You'd have your own space, own entrance, but also be close enough to be part of Emma and Michael's lives." That evening, as sunset, over a estate that had become home to most unlikely family imaginable, Theodore stood in his kitchen making dinner, while Emma helped Marcus set table and Susan fed baby Michael. The end.